Testing. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Zach Dagger, thank you for joining and confirming. We'll give it a few minutes, so just stay on tight. We'll definitely get started in a couple minutes here. But thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. We'll start in about 1 minute. All right. Well, looks like we have a couple folks here. Well, I hope you all are having a great Saturday here. Thanks for, actually Sunday. I'm losing track of the days here. Happy Sunday, guys. Thank you for joining. Uh, Looks like we got a couple folks here. If you have any questions or requests, put it in the chat. I'll cover all of your questions and requests in the chat. So just put a Q in the front of the question, and we'll definitely cover it. But today I wanted to just talk about overall, Bitcoin market, Wall Street, all of the macro scale updates. We have a lot to cover. We'll be talking about MicroStrategy predictions. I'll also be talking about the Bitcoin miners as well, where it's headed. Will we continue to see suppression with the price, or is now, the part where we see it at the basement low? So we'll be covering all that. But thank you all for joining. Let's get started. So where we are right now is, Bitcoin hovering around that 84,000. We're looking pretty good here, just with the weekend having that consistent consolidation around that 84,000. So first off, where are you guys all watching from, by the way? Put it in the chat. Let me know where you guys all watching from. I love to just hear where everyone is located. Bitcoin, rainbow price chart here. So key thing is we're still in that early phase. We're in that buy phase. We haven't even got to that accumulation phase. It's not even at that still cheap phase yet. At one point, we'll see Bitcoin in this bull cycle. It'll start getting into that HODL threshold, and then is this a bubble? And then FOMO starts kicking in, and then that's when people will start buying Bitcoin when the price goes up to like 150, even perhaps 200K. So all of this is going to be coming. We had that halving event back in April of last year. So it's just a matter of time where things are just going to kick into gears here. All right. So it looks like we have more people joining here. So happy Sunday, all. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. I'd love to answer any questions that you all have here. Let me know where you guys are watching from. So where we are right now, Bitcoin at 84,200. I think this is a good sign here as we head into the new week. I think as we keep this, consistent consolidation, next week is going to look, pretty good from my perspective as we get towards the end of the month here. I think Bitcoin can very well push up to like that, that upside of like 90K here. One key indicator I want to share with you all is the money supply. One thing is that money supply has been going up over the last couple of months here, and Bitcoin is going to follow that. I think now, just with seeing Bitcoin retrace over the recent weeks here, I think we're eventually going to see price of Bitcoin following that here. So it's only a matter of time where we see Bitcoin price go back up. So with the last 4 months of consolidating price going down from its all-time high, we're in this good phase here where we're primed for a breakout. All right, and just looking at another view here, just with the M2 global supply. Obviously we see here Bitcoin price having that current inverse performance here, but as M2 goes up, Bitcoin price is just going to start following that over the next 8 weeks here. It tends to lag behind M2 supply, but that's only going to be a matter of time where we see M2 supply start continuing to go up with Bitcoin price following that. So we got a posting from Michael Saylor today. So very interesting. I mean, typically whenever Saylor posts, what happens is the next day we hear a big purchase here. So Michael Saylor needs more orange. So, with that recent purchase of like 15 Bitcoins, I think, he's going to make a big orange dot purchase. We heard about that convertible note approval for Strike, $21 billion. So who knows? We might very well hear that big Bitcoin purchase of $21 billion coming up here. All right. And from Anthony Pompliano here, it's interesting because Peter, who has been just talking a lot of, just contrarian perspective around what Saylor is doing and all that. He had just so much negativity around Bitcoin and all of that, with Saylor, what he's doing, and that MicroStrategy will go bankrupt. But now we're becoming to see that Peter is now adapting, and now he's a believer of Bitcoin. So, he became a Bitcoin maxi. So you see this posting here. He actually created his strategic Bitcoin reserve, his 62nd birthday. He's actually buying up Bitcoin as well. He's adapting. It's great to see someone who's a big time non-believer of Bitcoin finally become a Bitcoin believer. It gets to the point where he understands what Bitcoin is, and that's why he's transforming into a Bitcoin maxi here. All right, so looks like we have a couple folks joining here, but just let me know what questions you have. I'd love to answer any questions you have here, but we'll just continue on. So just on the weekly charts here for Bitcoin. In fact, before we go to the weekly, let's take a look at the actual daily charts here. So on the daily here, key thing is, we're seeing RSI beginning to pick back up. Back in early March, we saw RSI significantly oversold, but now we're seeing the short-term EMA, just that intersection between the bullish divergence with the short-term EMA crossing the long-term EMA. We're beginning to see momentum signal pick up on the MACD here. And just from the support drawings trend line here, we continue to see an upward trajectory, and that's consistent with what we're seeing throughout the entire year range here. But overall, just with the zoomed in view here, just with the recent weeks of trading, I think we're in this right consolidation moments here where when we look at it on the weekly chart, MACD hasn't shown signs of it reversing yet, but on the intraday trading, we do see RSI picking up. So I anticipate on the weekly, we're going to see that divergence intersection. And you look here, the last 2 weeks have been green candles. That's a key indicator to look out for. And I think Bitcoin is eventually going to start, going back up here. All right, so we have David commenting. Thanks for joining, David. Yes, definitely. I agree with you. I definitely do think that the miners are going to definitely run back up here, definitely up to that 90K, I think end of month, given the fact that earnings report are going to be coming out. Lorenzo, thank you for joining. It's been a long many years. I do recognize your name here, and it's great that you're back in action here. God bless you as well. Hope everything is going well. Appreciate you stopping by here and just continuing to adapt and evolve, and just continue to build up here. So thank you for joining. But overall, just looking at the Bitcoin charts here, key signal here is 2 weeks on the green candles here. I think we're going to see some nice movements here, especially. I'll be covering some updates too, just on the week, on the daily here. We're seeing that consolidation. Before we go through MicroStrategy, some news here. The IMF, we've been hearing a lot about the International Monetary Fund. They're actually adapting as well, similar to Peter, who was a big time, a non-believer of Bitcoin. IMF, they're planning on buying Bitcoin as well. And what's interesting is that they were trying to discourage El Salvador and the US from buying Bitcoin. Why? Because they're beginning to lose the control. The fiat is eventually going away. I mean, the US dollar, not much people really value that. I mean, of course, third world countries, people do value the US dollar, but now I think the ultimate hedge towards the top asset would be Bitcoin. Bitcoin eventually will be the top #1 asset in the world. And I think one of the interesting things is that the US is considering to convert all of what they have with their gold cards and make that turn into Bitcoin. Here's an interesting post here from the Futures Now. So Bernstein, they cut their price targets of Iron, CleanSpark, and Riot, and now it's all at like $20 range. So that's at a gain of like 2.53x over the next 9 months. They are anticipating Bitcoin around 150, 200K. At 250K, we will see at $30 for all of them easily. And when you look at this visual here, Bitcoin down, obviously the miners have more volatility. But when there's volatility, what goes down even more can pop up even more. So if Bitcoin goes up by like 1.2x, getting up to 200K, oh man, these miners, these prices will shoot back up here by like 3 to 5x. Looking at CleanSpark, Riot, Mara, Iron, Core Scientific, these have been heavily shorted, but it's only a matter of time as Bitcoin price breaks out. I think these things are going to just run significantly. All right, so looking at the chat here, so do you think we should see lower than 76K, or are we already good to go for the new all-time high? So that's a great question, David. So, taking a look at Bitcoin right now, just, zooming out on the monthly here. So we saw retracement, since January 21st. It's been, dropping for several months now. But when you look at it from a monthly here, the monthly charts, I think it's been, consistently just consolidating. We want to see consolidation. We don't want to see it continue to retrace down, seeing further descending support levels here, lower lows. But I think because all of these major catalysts are coming into play, IMF's about to buy Bitcoin. The US is figuring out how best to buy up more Bitcoin. It's really a race right now between US and China. I think all of these driving catalysts are really going to push up the price of Bitcoin. And come Monday, as soon as we hear like, Saylor buying up more Bitcoin, I think that's going to cause a psychological demand for more companies, more countries to buy up Bitcoin. We're hearing, many countries now buy Bitcoin. So all of that's to come. I do think that, yes, while 70,000 is well within reach still, uh, I think the probability is getting less and less now. I think over the last several weeks now, especially with the news from Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve, with transitory effect with tariffs, and also the Federal Reserve having rate cuts of 2 occurrences this year, that just shows that we're in that phase of quantitative easing versus quantitative tightening. That's a key indicator that's really going to allow for more liquidity pumped into the system. So what does that mean? Risk on assets like Bitcoin is going to be off to the races. I think that where we are right now, I actually bought more Bitcoin recently, yesterday. So I do think we're at a good price, long-term perspective. I think we're just going to continue to pop up here. All right. So Lorenzo, what about XRP and H bar? So when it comes to altcoins, I do think that XRP, when we look at XRP, there is potential with XRP. Why? I think part of the reason is, when it comes to the Bitcoin Act, I think all of that's going to factor in Solana, that's going to factor in XRP, um, Ethereum. Those coins are also going to be added to the stockpile. So I think there's room for growth. Stellar Lumens, XRP, those coins have been making huge runs. I mean, it would have been great if you got in before that big run up. But XRP may very well go up to like $7 as Bitcoin price, doubles. So definitely those coins have huge upside, especially with the rising price of Bitcoin. One of the interesting takeaways here on why I'm so bullish with the Bitcoin miners is the fact that proof of work mining activities, we've got so much more clarity on what it means now for proof of work networks known as mining. So whenever we have Bitcoin miners, solving complex mathematical problems and being rewarded Bitcoin on the blockchain, now all of those rewards are considered non-security. What does that mean? Bitcoin miners don't have to register. It's not considered a security anymore as an investment. It's considered a commodity now. So that really strips away all of the layers and layers of regulatory implications as well as potential tax implications where miners, as soon as you get mined a Bitcoin, you may not very well be, double spending on your like taxes where once you mine a Bitcoin, you're going to have to pay tax where, you sell your Bitcoin, you're going to have to pay tax. So I think this really opens up the potential in Bitcoin miners to start ramping up, whether that's going to be pure Bitcoin mining or setting up infrastructure for AI as well. So big bullish opportunity here. All right. So Dave, are you holding miners long term or will you sell one next leg up? You will sell when the next leg up occurs. Sorry for my bad English. I'm a French speaker. So, well, thank you. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, let's take a look at, just technicals here. So I have Mara, Riot, CleanSpark. We'll cover all of that. So, just with what we're seeing with Mara, I mean, $12 right now. I definitely do believe that in this year, we're going to see that $30 again. Yes, we did see it go from 30 to $12. That's a big drop off. That's like, 65, 70%. But because it drops down that fast, it can just shoot up very fast. So I'm not too worried about that. We also look at Riot Platforms just based on technicals here. And of course, we're going to hear some fundamental driving catalysts as well. We saw that SEC news, but just look at the relative strength. I can say always, I can say never, because you'll never just not see the relative strength, not push back up. We will always see the relative strength kick in the gears. That's just based on technical analysis. Okay, so as we always see relative strength kick in, this is human psychology here. FOMO effects, that's just based on human behaviors when it comes to investing. Because we see it being oversold here, we will never see it remain at oversold. That's just the nature of human psychology. People invest, people trade, market participants will push up the price. And for those reasons, in this blue cloud I have drawn here, we're eventually going to see the relative strength kick back in. So we will always see an overbought situation where the price is just going to go back up here. Coupled by every drawdown here that we see, we're going to see relative strength kick back into gears here. And that's similar with, just CleanSpark as well. Relative strength here, it's been over a length of time where we saw overbought. We will see the relative strength also kick into gears here. So just long-term perspective, CleanSpark hovering in this bullish pennant flag, but I'm forecasting that we're going to see a double-digit run back up, as we head into April timeframe here. So, David, I hope that answers your question there. All right, and now, just Bitcoin hovering. I think this is a good sign here. We see Bitcoin around that 214K, just on the weekly here. You're welcome. What other questions do you all have? Happy Sunday, everyone. Thanks for everyone joining here, but leave your comments and questions in the chat here. We'll definitely, talk about strategy, miners, Bitcoin, you name it. So here, interesting take is I'm thinking come tomorrow, MSTR might very well get like a run up here, all dependent on the price of Bitcoin. Of course, if market opens tomorrow, Bitcoin goes down, we don't know that. Most likely it won't, but you never know. I think that we may very well see, MSTR have like a 5+% run up day. Key thing here is that, the relative strength is moving up now on the daily charts here. And key thing is we saw the breakout, on two occurrences here from this bullish pennant flag here. So I think the next leg here is getting up to that 340, 350 resistance, which we saw over the course of time. I believe as we hover into the month of April, we may very well see the price action market participants take the price up, where the new support will start, hovering around that 350. And if we can see healthy support around that time frame, we may very well see the price of MicroStrategy start lifting off. But we want to see some healthy support here in that 350 range. Right now, I think the support now, a lot of investors are seeing, 300 be the support level, just based on the last couple of weeks of trading, just with the multiple occurrences of 300, 290. I think as we, have that price pop into that 350 resistance and be able to demonstrate that it can hold support there, we're going to be off to the races. And couple that with Bitcoin price running up, it's going to be very huge, big takeoff, like what Mac Limbs is saying here. So definitely some huge upside, even if it's MSTU, MSTY, you name it. I mean, over the course of time, we've seen like the 2X, ETFs falling down. But I think, taking on risk, during those big fall downs during the last several months and weeks, there's huge upside potential with those stocks as well. Yeah, I'm with you. So Zahir, what you thinking about CleanSpark? So we just covered CleanSpark. We'll touch on it again here. Yes, David, I'm with you. Since November, it's been stressful for miners, stockholders. But again, when we look at like Mara, CleanSpark, Riot, relative strength's going to pop back up. You know, the market participants are going to send up the relative strength. Stocks don't stay oversold all the time. With Bitcoin price running up, these miners are going to shoot back up as well. I mean, we look at Riot here as well. So, people say don't always say always or never, right? But we're always going to see a big RSI run up. We're always going to see an oversold state. That's just the psychology of investing. But because we haven't seen an overbought situation, I'm drawing that line somewhere around April, May. We're going to have that big relative strength kick in here. Same deal with CleanSpark. It's going to just shoot back up. It's been heavily oversold since November timeframe. When it was like at $18 and now at like $7. Man, it dropped by like 70%. So definitely some huge price action, for the miners, I think. So, going through that pain early in, Q4 of last year, all the way through Q1 of this year. But think about it, you can't have pain the entire year. I think we're going to see better quarters in 2025 after experiencing a painful first quarter of the year. All right, so Bitcoin hovering around that 84,000. But yeah, thank you for the questions here. I really appreciate it. So can we see $30 for CleanSpark to end of year? I'll say there's potential for it to hit $30. Bitcoin price runs up, to 200K. We're gonna see miners, take off. All right, so I think we covered this earlier, but just Bitcoin here. Why am I so bullish? It's basically a fire sale. I mean, it's still in that buying phase. Like Saylor says, anything below 100K, anything you can buy Bitcoin at 80K. That's ridiculous. So I think we're gonna hear a big purchase from Saylor coming up here, which is gonna be a big gold dot here that's gonna be coming. So just a MicroStrategy portfolio tracker. It may be a very big dot where it covers all the blue lines, but it's nice to just see, overall MicroStrategy buying since COVID. I mean, 9,000, 20,000, 50,000, 60,000, 40,000, 30,000. 2021 buying it 60,000, 40,000, buying it at like 20,000. 2022 bear cycle, like 20,000, 15,000. It doesn't matter if it's high or low. Michael Saylor will continue to dollar cost average. That's the name of the game. Yep. So Macklin's exactly. So I'm definitely, I hope Rikes takes off. That's a big investment. I'm also in as well. Mara, I also have, investments in Mara as well. It's been painful, but hopefully it starts, making a run as well. So let's go MSTU. Let's go Rix. Let's go MSTR. Let's go Riot. Let's go Mara. Let's go CleanSpark. Let's go. Let's go Bitcoin. I think all of these things are going to start running here. So, what other questions do you guys have? I'd love to answer any questions that you have here, but I think just looking at Bitcoin price, that retracement that we saw recently, it was quite painful, I would say. But hopefully, hopefully we just see more consolidation on the upward motion. I think what we would like to see is just the overall price continue to consolidate and just shoot up. We're looking at it on the log scale here, which gives us a nice overview. But MACD picking up, relative strength picking up. I think we're beginning to see Bitcoin, get primed for a run up here. It's going to look very, very good. Do you think Bitcoin is headed into uncharted territory in terms of price cycles? It may just continue moving up longer than expected according to the typical 4-year cycle. You bring up a great point, just based on historical trends, right? Bitcoin tends to go up for like 3 years before it goes into like a Bitcoin bear cycle. Now, the question is, with the birth of ETFs that was created in 2024, more stability definitely comes into play here. You have the government backing, you have global game theory. So I think because financial institutions, there's heavy inflows of Bitcoin coming in now, that really reduces the volatility. Now, the question is whether that changes the duration of bull and bear cycles. It may very well do so, but I think it'll be just consistent with the historical trends, just looking at the historical data. So because we've seen 2022 be a bad year, 2023 being a year of like picking back up, that was where Wall Street was doing better, along with Bitcoin, getting back up from its big bear days. So 2023, 2024 were some good years. 2025 will be a good year as well. So just based on the historical trends, we tend to see, 3 positive appreciation years based on Bitcoin bull cycles, and then that'll be coupled with a bear cycle year. But that doesn't mean that the bear cycle year, that whether that's 2026 or even later, it may be extended, whether it'll have a extreme drop similar to what we saw during 2022 when the price dropped to like 16K. But that was like even before the birth of like ETFs and all that. That was also coupled by the Wall Street years underperforming. 2022 we had S&P, Dow Jones. It was a bear market year, I would say, the year 2022, where market dropped over 20%. So that caused a constraint to Bitcoin price as well. We typically see, bear cycles with the stock market once every 6 years, and we typically get like routine corrections of like 10% once every 2 years, which is what we saw recently in the markets when it comes to the S&P, Dow Jones 10%. But I don't think we're going to see a bear cycle here. So I hope that answers your question there. But overall, I think Bitcoin price, where we're looking at Bitcoin here, you know, I'm thinking we're gonna land somewhere into that. We're gonna land somewhere into that, that 200K. Who knows? We may very well see Bitcoin go beyond that, that 200K threshold. There's the prophet who was spot on March 14, Josh Mandel, forecasting that, March 14 it'll be 84,000, and guess what? He was pinpoint on that, and he's forecasting in this Bitcoin bull cycle 444,000. Take that with a grain of salt. He may be correct, he may not be correct, but he's doing something right. So who knows? We may see Bitcoin go even beyond that, but I think somewhere sweet spot, there will be profit taking somewhere around that 180K in this 2025 bull cycle. So thank you for your question, Macklins. What other questions do you have? Post it in the chat, and thank you all for joining here. Bitcoin just hovering here, just in that 84,000. I think this is looking good. We're seeing, just I think a lot of people are just wondering why Bitcoin, isn't moving much. I think this is a good sign. Just seeing it hover around this consistent 84,000. That basically proves that it's in this support level before the next breakout. We saw the support around that 100K, 90K for months, and now we're seeing support at 80K. So it's only a matter of time where it's going to gap up even further. All right, so I just want to just share with you all here just some pictures I recently took. So this was last week here where it's been many years. I mean, I've been training for like 5 years now, with the heavy lifting. So I was finally able to get 5 plates. Each plate is 45 pounds. The bar is 45 pounds. So deadlift 495 pounds here. It took a lot of effort, discipline, waking up early, doing this. So I'm just so, grateful to get to that level. Here is me on the bench press here. So we have 3 plates and that's a 10, or that's a 5 pound on each side. So 325 pound bench. I didn't get it. My PR is at 320, but hopefully I get this very soon. Deadlifting Macklins. That's great, man. Um, I'm glad to hear that. We have some lifters here as well. Deadlifting is just like one of the greatest, lifts ever. I mean, whether you do conventional or sumo, I used to do conventional, but I find it that with my physique, sumo deadlift, it really helps me be able to like lift more, and it protects my back. I don't know how long you've been deadlifting, but I would highly recommend, getting a belt and some deadlifting shoes as well, as you get more and more into it. But just wanted to share that outside of just all the routine like things I talk about. But thank you for sharing, JG Lee. Thanks for joining, JG Lee. I mean, you're a man with full of knowledge as well. So thank you, JG, for all the constant feedback. I hope you're finding that the content it's more readable. When you look at the screen. So I really appreciate you giving me all the feedback as well. In addition to you sharing all of that information, I didn't know about Cantor Fitzgerald being at the Madison Square Garden, like providing all of those information and all of those big names. I didn't even know about the big names until like recently, so it's things have changed. Traditional finance, things have definitely changed, and that's all because of Bitcoin. So what are your thoughts, everyone? Like now that we're seeing Bitcoin hovering in the consistent 85,000 over the weekend, what are your thoughts for next week? Like as we open up in the Monday's market, do you think Mara, Riot, CleanSpark, are these stocks going to be performing here, as well as MicroStrategy? Do you think the miners are going to perform starting Monday here, given the news from like protocol mining, proof of work mining activities no longer considered securities from the SEC? So Trump is having UATA at the SEC working now, along with crypto SARS, David Sachs. I mean, all of this is really changing like really quickly here, with the International Monetary Fund considering buying Bitcoin, as well as the U.S. You know, selling their Pokemon cards, with gold, and eventually buying up Bitcoin. That's going to be a big deal here. And we also talked about M2 money supply. So definitely one thing to keep in mind here, why I'm bullish on Bitcoin price, breaking 200K. We've already broken the 100K psychological barrier. So there's no question that 200K it's not too far out of sight. I mean, that's only a 1x from where Bitcoin is really at this point. So because M2 supply is going up, there's more liquidity. Quantitative tightening is going away. The Federal Reserve is going to pull down that lever. Inflation is going down. So for those reasons, there's going to be a lot more money printing going on. There's going to be a lot more drilling going on for oil. There's going to be a lot more Bitcoin mining in the North American states. There's going to be a golden era in the United States, and there's going to be a lot more Bitcoin purchases. So I think we're at that state where Bitcoin price is going to shoot up here, and we may very well see FOMO kick in. I think volume right now is getting much lower. It's weird because every time when Bitcoin prices go down, that's when people get worried. They don't buy, stocks or Bitcoin. Even the miners as well. Like with the price being at like $12 from our Riot at like a steel price right now less than $8. CleanSpark less than $8. I think the volume has been dead recently, but this is, of course, this isn't financial advice, but this is definitely an opportunity to dollar cost average down on the big three miners. Even MicroStrategy, we're beginning to see a breakout from this bullish pennant flag. We're beginning to see the new support level here at 300. At one point, we saw it retrace down to 225. That would have been the good time to buy in as well, but of course, we can't always time the market. But now the new support, it went from 220 to like 300, right? But the psychological barrier is going to change at one point. Once we break into that resistance of 350, 350 at one point, once we hover into April timeframe, 350 is going to be the new support from my perspective with MSTR. All right. So, what questions do you all have? Bitcoin just hovering around the 84,000, 85,000. It just popped up here. What is going on? All right. We're seeing we're seeing more inflows come in. What's going on? Bitcoin price going up here. Let me just hit the refresh. Let me change it to the 1 minute chart. Actually, on the daily here, 85,000. Here we go. Let me just put on the trading view here. All right, so looking pretty good here is what we're seeing. All right, so on the daily chart. So one way I like looking at the technicals is, you know, it's better to see the slopes get even more and more steep. So let's see how steep this can go. If we can break out into that, that 87, we saw 86, not too long ago. I think that was like last week, but hopefully we continue to see that upward steep motion here. So Macklins, these bullish news stories are just going to keep coming out and create a huge snowball FOMO effect. So David, you're right. It's a different Sunday for sure. Usually we go down. So here's the thing. I mean, whether you're invested in Bitcoin, the miners, or MicroStrategy, over the last couple weekends, I'm pretty sure we all had fear. We all felt emotion. But doesn't this weekend feel a little different? I mean, different in the sense that there's hope, there's potential reversal, and of course, people want to see proof of that first, right? I mean, we're hearing all of these like, these macro scale catalyst updates here, but people want to see the price of Bitcoin, for example, shoot back up in order to start feeling more confident. But none of that's happened yet. But don't you feel that this weekend's a little different? So I'm with you, David, on that. You know, it's a different Sunday for sure. Usually we go down. Bitcoin has been just continuing to go down over the last couple of months, but it's different here. Jason, thank you for joining, man. Hope you're having a great Sunday here. JG Lee, ETH over 2000 will bring back some confidence in the crypto market. Yeah, so we talk about the US stockpile, the Bitcoin Act of 2025. ETH is going to be part of that stockpile. Cardano, Ripple, Solana is going to be part of that stockpile, which is why, these other, commodities are going to start ramping up as well. So it's not only Bitcoin here, it's the entire Bitcoin ecosystem, especially the North American commodities. Even Dogecoin, for example, I think is going to have a run up. But this is a good sign here. Seeing Bitcoin around that 448, 85, 45 here. Let me redraw that line. What happened? I'm not a perfect line drawer here. But let me just redraw that line. All right, so looking much better is what I'm seeing here. Hopefully we see Bitcoin start going up here. I think miners are going to have better days here. We've been just seeing heavy suppression with the miners. The shorters have been taking advantage, but I think Mara, it's going to break out very soon here. I mean, they're right behind MicroStrategy in terms of Bitcoin HODL. HODL hasn't really been priced in yet, but as soon as Bitcoin price starts going back into that 9100K, we're going to start seeing heavy movements here. Along with Riot here, technicals tell us that relative strength, we're going to see a big run up here, relative strength, along with CleanSpark too. I do foresee relative strength to kick into gears as well. Price action. These big three miners really have 3 to 5x potential. I've been saying that. Yes, the last couple of months have been a big beatdown here, but you don't lose until you sell. And these miners are going to be backed by, government incentives, and also having HODL of Bitcoin. Bitcoin right now, just where it currently is, 85,000 from the 109. So it's been, dropping down in price. That's why the miners have been impacted. But as soon as Bitcoin price starts going back up, these miners are really going to, kick into gears here. And who knows, may very well outperform Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, or MicroStrategy outperforming, or Bitcoin outperforming. We don't know. But I think overall, right now, all in all, because Bitcoin is a finite commodity, it's definitely long term a great investment. So, Bitcoin is, there's no question that it's one of the best commodities to invest in right now. You know, um, so think about it long term. It's going to go to like 13 million when you look at like 1 to 2 decades away from now. Definitely, there's no question about that. You think about Bitcoin. I mean, you can use like 1 Bitcoin right now to down payment on the house. Come the next 5 years, 1 Bitcoin can actually buy a house. So that could be a house in like California, for example. Um, so that's one of the interesting things about where we are now with the psychology and the growth of Bitcoin. All right. So, what other questions do you guys have here? I've been having such a great time just doing this live here. I hope that you guys are finding this enjoyable as well. But definitely some nice movement with Bitcoin here, in the steady 85,000. I think this is a good sign for all of us here, especially with that big drawdown. Let me just draw that retracement. Just that retracement just kicked us in the butt in red here, right? I mean, just that continual downward pressure, but just within the last, since the last 2 weeks, I would say, we're beginning to see better days here. I think, people like buying Bitcoin at these prices. It gets engulfed up at 78K, even at 80K. You got buying pressure here. So definitely upside potential is what I'm seeing here. I think key thing is, when you see Bitcoin go from like 109K down to like 84K back in February, you can't just expect it to just shoot back up. Yes, V shapes are very well possible, but it tends to need time to consolidate in this, bull flag pan channel, and then start just hovering and then pop back up. So I think we're in that nice state of, coiling up for that next gap up here. So continuous hovering in this 85K before that next run up. I think we're gonna like hit that point of like, 130, 150K, and then we may very well just, get off to the races into that 200K. All right, so I've gone over for 51 minutes here, but I'll probably take another question here. So if you could leave a question in the chat, I can definitely give you my perspective on it, or any request that you have. Definitely leave it in the chat, and we can discuss it. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's any other questions here. So perhaps we can end early, but just wanted to thank you all for joining. Really appreciate you guys all stopping by here for this live stream. Hopefully we open the market with green days tomorrow. And, just take a look at the video I just posted this morning, and we'll talk more. Thank you guys. We'll do this live stream again next weekend. Take care.